Dear viewers, welcome to another episode of What's Brewing. We have with us today Dr. Sanveen Kang. Dr. Sanveen is going to talk about something that is close to many people's hearts, particularly if you are a parent or a teacher or a student yourself. I think you'll find this topic that we're going to discuss today very interesting. So Sanveen is a clinic manager and principal clinical psychologist at Psych Connect, which is a Singapore-based psychological clinic that she founded. She has more than 14 years of experience in treating mental and physical health issues for clients in hospitals, private practice, educational, and corporate settings. Welcome, Sanveen.
Hi, thank you.
So, Sanveen, we're going to dive right into it. And, I think a lot of parents, and you must have heard this as well, are splitting hairs, keeping their kids occupied while at home during the circuit breaker period. Is it really a bad thing if they fail to have their kids constantly engaged? Or is boredom to some extent completely fine?
I think, we need to strike a balance between boredom and keeping them engaged. Children need free time in order to organize play, in order to play freely, and through play as well, many children have the opportunity to resolve conflicts, express emotion. So I would say no. It needs to be a balance between keeping them engaged, but they also need a lot more time to be bored so that they can engage in self-driven play.
Right. So, the whole idea of home-based learning is a pretty new concept to many parents and students in Singapore, and certainly to schools and teachers as well. But parents are quite concerned that their kids may fail to catch up with schoolwork, especially those, I think, who are studying for big exams like PSLE and the likes like that. And parents are concerned that their kids may not be ready for these exams. Is this a valid concern, or should parents allow the focus to shift to a wider definition of learning during this period?
Yeah, well, I think there are two parts to that question. One is parental anxieties, which is completely understandable given the uncertainty of today's time. So we're not very sure as to what things are going to look like after the circuit breaker lifts. Parents are also being stretched for time because they have to be at home, they have to support home-based learning, and at the same time be able to work and efficiently meet the needs of their jobs. So it is a lot more trickier than expected, I guess.
Sure.
It's a tricky space because parents have their own personal anxieties and want to ensure that they're providing their children with the environment and the support systems that they need in order to succeed. But at the same time, it's important to recognize that children are also experiencing stresses. Transition is hard for adults, and we have been pushed into a transition very quickly with very little time to adjust. So children are also adjusting. They are experiencing losses themselves, so loss of social contact, having to go to a completely digitalized platform for learning, and at the same time also function at home and in school and to perform at the same level as they were previously. So I guess there are two parts, and we need to look at them in both respects. So what sort of supports can parents provide, and at the same time, can we create an environment that's psychologically healthy for children so that they are equipped and better positioned to take on the learning that's being provided through this platform?
And you're right. The period can be a very confusing and unsettling one for both kids and parents. But even for kids, at least for adults and for parents, we have somewhat better understanding of what the coronavirus is and what's happening in this situation. But that may not necessarily be the case for kids. So for getting them to understand what it is, coping with the disruption of routine, and routine is important for children, and just dealing with being locked up at home or being at home most of the time, being cooped up at home. What could some possible impact of this be on the mental well-being of children or a child and his or her general confidence?
The most obvious impact would be anxiety. Not being, children need consistency in lives and predictability. So in today's times, we haven't got consistency and we haven't got predictability. Not to discount the fact that they're adjusting and they're also probably to some degree grieving the lives that they previously had and have lost in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
So anxiety is likely to be an outcome. For some children who have already been struggling with anxiety, we may also notice that their mood might start dipping, so they might be starting to feel quite sad, starting to feel quite low, and possibly even clinically depressed.
Mm-hmm. And how can parents help detect these mood swings in their children better?
One is noticing if there are any obvious changes in behavior. So if your child is becoming more clingy, if you notice more externalizing behaviors, more tantrums, more arguments, if you feel that your child is pushing boundaries a bit more, trying to assert themselves in areas of their lives that are in their control, those might be indicators. Some children, if they are fairly eloquent or if they're older as well, might be able to articulate their emotions. They feel scared, they're worried, they're feeling sad, they're missing their friends, they want to go out and play, they don't understand what's going on. I've worked with children as young as 6 who are talking about being worried that they might die, that their parents might die, their parents may contract a virus. So I think children often will communicate to some degree how they're feeling, whether it's through actions or through words. And it's about noticing that. If you notice that your child is talking a lot more about a certain topic, if you notice behavior changes, or if you notice changes even in sleep patterns and fatigue levels as well. Yeah.
Well, those are very powerful and big thoughts for a young child to have, particularly the fear of losing your parent to the virus. I can only imagine. So what could parents do to help their kids cope better with this whole situation? So what could I as a parent do, for instance?
Yeah. Well, one is having lots of conversations around what the virus means, explaining why we're in lockdown, or in partial lockdown at this point in time, explaining emotions to children. We can label feelings, if we can have conversations around normalizing feelings as well. Like, yes, this is scary, this is different, no one's experienced this before, we don't know what the future is going to be like, but we do know that these things are going to happen. So providing them with a sense of certainty, helping them label their emotions, normalizing those feelings as well, that it's a unique situation and we're all feeling the same thing, but directing the conversation into areas that the child has got in their control right now. So what can we do right now? We're at home, we're safe, we can maintain good hygiene, introducing activities within the home that allow relaxation or allow even mindfulness. So if you were to include mindfulness practices at home, making sure that children have some downtime. Creative play is a great avenue as well. So using art, using play, and just ensuring that there is a balance. I think one of the other things that I've also noticed is that parents are stressed as well. We're dealing with our own struggles and having to manage many different things. So it's also important to recognize that as a parent, we need to have coping strategies as well, such that our child then is able to model those.
Yeah.
So I guess if we're in control of our feelings, then we're also communicating to the children that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right about the stresses that parents feel and then sort of not being able to, keep that away from the child. I mean, I hear a lot of parents, and I certainly experienced this myself in the early days of working from home, where we are struggling, working from home during this period, and from separating those work responsibilities with spending time with your children, right? And kids, of course, don't know where the boundaries are. And you will be having a Zoom meeting, and a kid runs into your room and right smack into your frame. It makes it a little tricky for parents to focus on both responsibilities at the same time. And whether you like it or not, you do end up getting frustrated, and some of those frustration then shifts onto the child. Do you have any tips for parents to help their kids better understand what these boundaries are in terms of where the work boundaries can be drawn and how to manage such divisions?
I think routines being one. Children work really well with schedules. So if you've got your child on a schedule, again, depending on the age of the child. So if the child's very young and one parent's working and another parent's helping the child with home business, then that child might struggle to understand what they can and cannot do. So if you could put boundaries into place in terms of routines, signage as well. For young children, they might not understand or remember instructions for very long, but they can interpret signs, and if you explain that to them, finding ways to keep children engaged in the times that you are as well will be helpful. But I think above and beyond that, it is also recognizing, as you rightly said, it's tricky for the child as well. So if we can manage some of our own emotions, and I think because everyone is in this situation together, I think what's unique about this current situation is that everybody is experiencing the same thing. So if we were to just bring a little bit of kindness, right? So if you're on a phone call and that would happen to a colleague, or being understanding that it's a tricky space. We're all confined to small spaces right now, and we have to share them with whomever is in our homes.
Absolutely. And I think another stress that may come about that some families may feel or face going forward is perhaps the loss of jobs or loss of income. And how can parents, such as these who go through these experiences, then shelter that from their children?
Yeah. I guess that's a tricky one, because if you're experiencing such a big loss, there's definitely going to be times where you're going to have these conversations, or you're going to be experiencing these emotions in the presence of your child.
Yes.
Well, I think it's two the various things that can be done. Possibly two. One is ensuring that as much as possible, you're only engaging in conversations that your child could possibly understand. And if there are any conversations that need to happen, which would be stressful or inappropriate for your child to be exposed to have that in privacy with your partner or whoever you're having those conversations with. But two, look, in life we're going to have ups and we're going to have downs, and in order to cope with either, we need to recognize that losses, we all experience losses, and we have the capabilities and the skills to cope with these losses. So at the same time, I do think if children have been exposed to the information, it is about, again, normalizing this experience. The entire world is going through this. Many people are losing jobs. I guess providing a sense of assurity to children to know that, okay, I've got a plan, and these are the things we're going to do. And again, what's in my control is what I'm going to focus on. And I'm pretty convinced with the idea that if children see their parents as being okay, they feel safe as well. Parents are very much heroes in the eyes of children. Like, you look at mom and dad, and they never seem to have any problem. They go to work, they get everything sorted. So when you see those heroes struggling, sometimes it can be scary. It is important to see them struggle as well, because we also then communicate to children that, hey, we have difficulties as well, but they can be coped with, so it's okay. And that message, I think, can be very powerful for children who might be facing some challenges. And even if they aren't at that point in time, to know that everything's going to be fine because the two people who I'm looking up to are actually in control.
That's a very powerful thought to end this discussion, and I think that's very important. So as parents, it's okay to model some of that difficulties we go through, but also to show that these can be overcome and to show some form of resilience. And I think you have mentioned as well that kids do model after their parents as well. So that's a very important point. Thank you, Sanveen, for sharing these thoughts with us. I'm sure we'll be in touch again, because as we go forward in these next few months, I think mental health is going to come much more to the fore, and going to be an issue that we're going to grapple with as a society, and perhaps even as a community. So we would love to talk to you again down the road, and we'll be in touch again.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sanveen. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.